Hello everyone, and welcome to another R tutorial video. In this video, we're going to wrap up our discussion on using shape to differentiate variables and to just improve the overall look of our plot. So if you remember in the previous shape video, which I strongly encourage you watch if you haven't already done so, we talked about how we could adjust the shape in the ggplot2 package. And now I want to walk through how we would get that same effect using base R. And the reason that I made these two separate videos is because the base R implementation requires a few more steps. Is a little bit more confusing, and I want to make sure that we walk through it with enough time and understanding. So the problem with the base R implementation is that this PCH function right here, PCH parameter right here, it will only accept numbers as the input. So if, for example, you might be expecting, like we did with color, for us to just be able to go like this and do species, and expecting it to sort of interpret that and create different shapes based on species. If we run this, you'll see that we get an error code, invalid plotting symbol. And that's because this PCH function is expecting us to be giving it those integer codes, right? If you remember back, I'll pull that back up really quick. It's expecting the column that we pass it to be one of these integer codes. And obviously, species is not an integer, right? It's a factor. Now what we might be able to do, and I actually don't know if this is going to work, is we might be able to do something like levels species and run that. And you'll see that we can get some letter symbols here, but that's not particularly useful, especially because two of them have the same first letter, and so it's not particularly helpful. But what we can do, and this is why I said it's a little bit more work, is to go through the sort of the same steps we went through with color, where we pre-bake in the number codes into the data frame, and then we simply call that in the PCH function, or sorry, in the PCH parameter. So how we go about doing this is we make a new data frame, I'm going to call it shapes, equals data.frame, and there's going to be two columns in the data frame. The first is going to be species, and this is going to be equal to the levels that we have in the iris data set species. And the second is going to be the shapes. And in this case, because we know that there are three levels, we can just directly type in the numbers here. And to make this consistent with what we did down here, we can do 2, 4, and 9. And this is going to be the triangle, the X, and the kite, just like what we saw in the previous video. So if we run this, and just really quickly to show you what that looks like, you'll see that we have the species and then we have the shape numeric codes. So now we have to attach those codes back into the original data frame. And so I always prefer to generate a new data frame just so we don't have any weird issues. And we're going to use the base R. Again, this is functionally equivalent to the join left function coming out of dplyr, but for the sake of not having to deal with another package, we're just going to use base R's merge function. Merge takes in an X, a Y, and a bi. So X and Y being the two data frames we want to merge, we want to merge the iris dataset to the shapes dataset, and we want to merge it by species. So we run that. So now if we want to generate the plot, we will copy our plot from before so we don't have any stupid typos. We're going to keep formula the same. We have to change our data to the df that we made here. And now we can specify the shape, this PCH parameter, to come from the shapes column of the merged data set. So if we run this, and then we run this, you'll see that we've in fact done exactly what we set out to do. Now again, what makes ggplot nice is the default inclusion of a legend, but you can see here that what we've done is we've managed to successfully change the shapes based on the species. It just took a couple more steps. So hopefully that made sense. I know there were a lot of steps here, and we pulled in sort of non-plot related code. So hopefully you were able to follow that. If at any point you felt confused, I encourage you to pause the video, go back, rewatch the parts you're confused on, and as always, please reach out. Thank you.